The call from my mother came just as I was finishing hanging Grandma Etta's quilts on the clothesline. Her timing was always impeccable that way, disrupting the small moments of peace I managed to carve out for myself. "Lila, darling, I need you to do something for me." Her voice carried that familiar saccharine tone that always preceded bad news. I pinned the last corner of the quilt, watching it dance in the autumn breeze. "I'm kind of busy, Mom. This is important. Sarah needs a place to stay." The wooden clothespin snapped in my hand. Sarah, my half-sister, the golden child, the one who'd never had to work for anything in her life.
No.
"It's not a request, dear. She'll be there tomorrow." I pressed my fingers against the bridge of my nose. "You can't just." "Actually, I can." Her voice hardened. "Need I remind you that your grandmother's house isn't legally yours yet? The trust doesn't transfer until you're 30. The quilts suddenly felt like they were closing in around me, their familiar patterns morphing into prison bars. "You wouldn't." "Of course not, darling. But Sarah needs guidance, and you're so stable." She made it sound like a disease. "Besides, that house is far too big for just one person." I looked up at Grandma Etta's Victorian home, with its worn blue shutters and wraparound porch. Every creaking floorboard and chipped tile held a memory. "This is my home." "Then be a good sister and share it. Sarah will arrive tomorrow afternoon. Do make her feel welcome." The line went dead before I could protest further. I stood there, surrounded by billowing quilts, my phone clutched so tight my knuckles turned white. Inside, I paced the kitchen, my grandmother's domain where she'd taught me everything from baking to standing my ground. The copper pots still hung exactly where she'd left them, catching the sunlight that streamed through the bay window. My neighbor Iris's voice drifted through the screen door. "Those quilts sure look pretty dancing in the wind." I opened the door to find her on the porch, a plate of cookies in hand. One look at my face, and her smile faded. "Mari called," I said, accepting the plate.
Ah.
Iris settled into one of the rocking chairs. "And what does Her Majesty want this time?" "She's sending Sarah to live with me. Tomorrow." Iris's rocker stopped mid-motion. "The same Sarah who threw a fit at your grandmother's funeral because the catering wasn't up to her standards?" "The very same." I sank into the other chair, offering her a cookie. "Mom's using the trust as leverage. If I don't take her in, she'll contest the house," Iris finished, her eyes narrowing. "That woman never did fight fair." A text buzzed on my phone. From Sarah. "Can't wait to give that dusty old place a makeover."
指甲油亮光闪烁。
My stomach clenched. I showed Iris the message. "Well," she said, brushing cookie crumbs from her lap, "looks like you've got some decisions to make, honey. The question is, are you going to let them walk all over Etta's legacy, or are you going to show them what that old bird really taught you?" I watched the quilts ripple in the wind, thinking of all the stories Grandma Etta had stitched into them. Stories of resilience, of standing firm when the world tried to push you down. "They have no idea what they're walking into," I said quietly, and for the first time since the phone call, I smiled. Iris patted my hand. "That's the spirit. Now let's talk strategy." Sarah's arrival brought chaos with it, literally. 3 designer suitcases spilled across Grandma Etta's hand-woven rugs, and the sound of stilettos clicked against the hardwood floors like tiny hammers against my skull. "This place is so quaint," Sarah said, wrinkling her nose at the vintage wallpaper. "Mom said it needed work, but I didn't realize how much." I bit my tongue, remembering Iris's advice about picking my battles. "Your room is upstairs, second door on the right. The one with the hideous floral curtains?" She pulled out her phone, scrolling rapidly. "I already ordered new ones, along with some other necessities. You can't just..." "Oh, and the moving truck will be here tomorrow with my furniture." My hands clenched involuntarily. "There's already furniture in that room." Sarah glanced up, her perfectly manicured eyebrows arching. "That ancient stuff? I had it moved to the attic this morning. The movers came while you were at work." The room spun slightly. I steadied myself against the banister, feeling the smooth wood Grandma Etta had polished countless times. "You went into my house while I was gone?" "Mom gave me a key." She shrugged, as if this explained everything. Don't worry, I supervised them. Nothing valuable was damaged. Well, except for that old mirror, but honestly, it was already cracked. My throat tightened. Which mirror? The ugly gold one. It's fine though. I ordered a modern replacement that'll really open up the space. Grandma Etta's vanity mirror. The one she'd rescued from a fire in her childhood home. The one she'd restored by hand. I took 3 deep breaths, just like Iris taught me. Show me. Sarah rolled her eyes, but led me upstairs. The room, my mother's old room, was stripped bare. The antique dresser, the hand-carved bed frame, the reading nook cushions Grandma had embroidered, all gone. In their place stood sleek, modern furniture still wrapped in plastic.
See?
So much better already. Sarah bounced on the mattress that had replaced Grandma's 4-poster bed. Though these floors really need updating. I'm thinking hardwood. Stop. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Where's the mirror? Attic. Though honestly, you should just let me. I was already moving, climbing the narrow stairs to the attic. The space was chaos. Furniture piled haphazardly, boxes stacked without care. And there, propped against a trunk, was Grandma's mirror. A jagged crack split its surface from corner to corner. Something inside me cracked too. I descended to find Sarah on her phone again. The contractors can start next week. Mom's covering it, of course. She agrees this place needs. Get out. She looked up, startled. Excuse me? Get out of this room. Now. You can't be serious. Mom said. I don't care what Mom said. This is my house and you, my voice caught. You don't get to erase her. Erase who? That old furniture? Please, I'm doing you a favor. This place is stuck in the last century. I stepped closer, feeling something shift inside me, something cold and determined. You have 2 choices. Either you move everything back exactly as it was, or you can explain to Mom why you're sleeping in a hotel. You wouldn't dare. The trust. Try me. Our eyes locked. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across her perfect features. Fine, she huffed. I'll cancel the contractors. But I'm not moving all that heavy stuff myself. No, I said, already pulling out my phone. You're going to help me move every single piece back. And then we're going to have a long talk about boundaries. She opened her mouth to argue, but something in my expression made her stop. Good. Let her see what she was really dealing with. Because this wasn't just about furniture or a broken mirror. This was war, and I'd learned from the best how to fight without drawing blood. Grandma Etta would be proud. The letter from Berkeley University fell from Sarah's purse while I was cleaning up another of her breakfast messes. I shouldn't have read it, but after a week of her entitled behavior, my sympathy had worn paper thin. Academic dismissal. Not just poor grades, plagiarism. The front door slammed, and I quickly shoved the letter back into her purse. Sarah stormed in. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. Mom's not answering my calls, she spat, throwing her phone onto the counter. Again. I watched her grab Grandma's crystal tumbler and fill it with vodka. At 2 in the afternoon. Rough day. Like you care. She knocked back the drink. You're probably loving this, aren't you? Perfect Lila, with her perfect little life in this perfect little museum. My life's far from perfect. I moved the vodka bottle out of reach. But at least I'm honest about it. Her head snapped up. What's that supposed to mean? I met her gaze steadily. Does Mom know why you really left college? The color drained from her face. For a moment, I saw past the designer clothes and practiced sneer to something raw and frightened. Then the mask slipped back into place. You went through my things? She grabbed her purse, clutching it like a shield. You had no right. Like you had no right to move Grandma's furniture? Or break her mirror? That's different, Mom said. Mom's not here. I stepped closer. It's just us, Sarah. No audience, no one to perform for. Why don't you tell me what really happened? She hurled the crystal tumbler against the wall. It shattered, sending prisms of light dancing across the kitchen. You want the truth?
Fine.
I couldn't hack it, okay? I couldn't be what everyone expected. Perfect grades, perfect social life, perfect everything. So I took some shortcuts. By stealing someone else's work? I was drowning. Her voice cracked. Do you know what it's like living in your shadow? Why can't you be more like your sister? Why can't you get it together like Lila? Even when Mom sent me here, it was because you're the responsible one. I almost laughed. You think I'm the favorite? Mom barely acknowledges my existence unless she wants something. At least she had expectations for you. Me? Sarah slumped against the counter. I'm just the mistake she made with her second husband. The kitchen fell silent except for the tick of Grandma's old clock. I looked at the shattered crystal, thinking of all the things we'd broken between us. Help me clean this up, I said finally. She blinked. What? The glass. Help me clean it up, and then we can talk. Really talk. For a moment, I thought she'd refuse. Then she grabbed the broom I held out. As we swept up the broken pieces, I noticed her hands trembling. You know, I said carefully, Grandma used to say that sometimes things need to break before they can be fixed properly. Sarah paused, a dustpan full of crystal shards in her hands. Is that why you hate me? Because I'm breaking things. I don't hate you, Sarah. I hate what you're doing to this house, to Grandma's memory. She dumped the glass into the trash. I needed to change something, to feel like I had control over something. I thought of the letter in her purse, of all the pressure she must have faced. There are better ways to take control. She looked around the kitchen, at the space she'd been trying so hard to erase. Will you show me? It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. And maybe, just maybe, there was something worth salvaging here, if we could both let go of our weapons long enough to try. First, I said, let me tell you about the woman who built this house with her own 2 hands. The bass from Sarah's impromptu party rattled Grandma's china cabinet, each vibration threatening to topple the delicate teacups inside. I'd returned from my late shift to find our tentative peace shattered along with my hopes of progress. It's just a few friends, Sarah had said earlier when I caught her setting up. Now, at midnight, a few friends had multiplied into dozens of strangers sprawled across every surface of our home. Someone stumbled into Grandma's reading chair, sloshing red wine onto the hand-stitched cushions. Another group was using her antique coffee table for beer pong. I found Sarah in the kitchen, perched on the counter where Grandma had taught me to roll pie crust, surrounded by admirers. Oh my God, you should have seen her face when I redecorated, she was saying. Like I'd committed murder or something. It's just furniture. The room fell silent as I stepped in. Sarah's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before brightening artificially. Lila, you're home early. This needs to end.
Now.
Don't be such a buzzkill. She hopped down, swaying slightly. We're celebrating. Celebrating what? Mom called. She's giving me access to my trust fund early. No more slumming it here. She gestured grandly, nearly knocking over a bottle. I'm moving out next week. The news should have brought relief. Instead, it felt like a punch to the gut. When were you planning to tell me? I just did. She turned to her audience. See what I mean? So dramatic. A crash from the living room made me flinch. Sarah rolled her eyes. Relax, I'll replace whatever it is. Like you replaced Grandma's mirror? Her friends exchanged glances, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Sarah waved them away. Give us a minute, guys. Once we were alone, her facade cracked slightly. Look, I know I messed up with the mirror, but this isn't about the mirror. I grabbed a stranger's hands as they reached for Grandma's prized copper pots. This is about respect. For this house, for me, for yourself. Oh, please. You're not my mother. No, I'm not. I'm the person who's been trying to help you. She laughed, harsh and brittle. Help me? By what? Lecturing me about your precious grandmother. Judging everything I do? Some sister you are. Sister? I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Sisters don't use each other. They don't destroy what matters most to each other for entertainment. Something flickered in her eyes, guilt, maybe, or fear. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression hardened. Mom says hi, she said sweetly. She also mentioned something interesting about the trust conditions for the house. Apparently, if the property isn't properly maintained. The threat hung in the air between us. Through the doorway, I could see more people arriving, bringing chaos with them. So here's the deal, Sarah continued. The party stays. And if you try to stop it. She shrugged. Well, I'm sure Mom would love to hear about all the damage happening to her investment. In that moment, I saw our mother in her, the same calculated manipulation, the same casual cruelty. But I also saw something else, desperation. The kind that comes from never feeling good enough. I thought of the college dismissal letter, of her earlier vulnerability, of all the ways fear can make us cruel. Okay, I said quietly. She blinked, thrown off balance. Okay, the party can stay. But first, let me show you something in the attic. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's forcing someone to face the truth about themselves. And I knew exactly which box of family photos would do just that. Sarah followed me upstairs, unaware she was walking into a different kind of confrontation altogether. The old photo albums lay scattered across the attic floor, their pages spread like broken wings. Sarah sat cross-legged among them, her party forgotten downstairs as she stared at a photograph of our mother, young, carefree, holding a baby that wasn't her. She looks happy, Sarah whispered, tracing Mom's smile with a fingertip. I've never seen her look at me like that. I pulled another album from the trunk. Keep looking. The music thumped below us, but up here time seemed suspended between heartbeats. Sarah flipped through more pages, her perfectly manicured nails trembling slightly. When did she change? She didn't. I handed her the second album. This is from after she left. The contrast was stark. Mom in designer suits, her smile practiced, professional. A succession of photos showing her achievements, her new life, her new family. Sarah appeared in these, always perfectly dressed, always slightly apart. I don't understand, Sarah said. Why show me this? Because you're not the first person she's abandoned. I reached for Grandma's jewelry box, pulled out a folded letter. Or the last one she'll try to control. The letter was dated 3 months ago. Mom's elegant handwriting detailed her plans for modernizing the house once she gained control. Plans that had nothing to do with preservation and everything to do with profit. Sarah's face paled as she read. The trust fund, she never intended to give it to me, did she? She needed you to create enough chaos that she'd have reason to intervene. The words tasted bitter. I'm just sorry I didn't see it sooner. A crash from downstairs made us both jump. Sarah's phone buzzed, Mom's name lighting up the screen. She stared at it, then deliberately pressed ignore. All this time, she said quietly, I thought if I just tried harder, proved myself. Her laugh was hollow. God, I'm such an idiot. You're not an idiot. You're her daughter. I closed the album gently. We both are. That's why she knows exactly how to play us against each other. Sarah stood abruptly, swaying slightly. I have to stop the party. We both know it's too late for that. Then what do we do? For the first time since she arrived, she looked her age. Young, scared, lost. I thought of Grandma Etta, of all her lessons about standing your ground, about choosing your battles wisely. We give her exactly what she wants. What? The chaos she's expecting. Just not quite the way she planned it. I pulled out my phone. But first, we need to make a few calls. Sarah's eyes widened as I dialed. Who are you calling? Iris. And then a lawyer I know. I met her gaze steadily. The question is, are you with me? Really with me? She looked down at the photos again, at the mother who had shaped us both through absence and manipulation. Then she straightened her shoulders, something of Grandma's steel showing through. What do you need me to do? First, we're going to document everything downstairs. Every bit of damage, every drunk guest. Then we're going to call the police on our terms. Mom will be furious. That's the point. I held out my hand, ready to disappoint our mother together. She took it, her grip firm despite her trembling. I think I've been ready my whole life. Downstairs, the party raged on, but up here in the attic, surrounded by the ghosts of our past, something new was taking shape. Something that felt less like revenge and more like revolution. Mom had taught us well how to be weapons against each other. Now it was time to show her we'd learned to be shields instead. The police lights painted the Victorians' facade in alternating red and blue, a twisted parody of Christmas. Drunk college students stumbled across Grandma's lawn while officers took statements. And there, emerging from her Mercedes like an avenging angel, stood our mother. "What have you done?" Her voice cut through the chaos, aimed directly at me. Not at Sarah, who stood beside me on the porch. Not at the officer documenting the damage. At me. "Exactly what you wanted," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Created enough chaos to justify your intervention." Her perfect composure slipped for just a moment. "I don't know what you're talking about. The trust conditions?" Sarah stepped forward. "The plans to modernize the property? We found your letter, Mom." Mom's eyes narrowed, reassessing the battlefield. "I see you've both been busy spinning stories. Officer, I'd like to press charges for the property damage." "Against your own daughters?" Iris appeared at my side, clutching a familiar-looking envelope. "Stay out of this." Mom's smile turned sharp. "This is a family matter." "Exactly why I'm here." Iris handed the envelope to the officer. "These are copies of letters showing premeditated intent to manipulate property ownership through manufactured incidents. I believe that's relevant to your investigation." Mom's mask cracked completely. "You had no right to keep those letters." "Etta had every right." Iris's voice was steel. "She knew exactly what you'd try to do after she was gone." The officer flipped through the papers, frowning. "Ma'am, you might want to contact your lawyer." "Oh, I already have." Mom pulled out her phone. In fact, a new voice cut in. "You might want to hear this first." A man in a suit approached, holding up his phone. A recording played, Mom's voice discussing her plans to use Sarah to force a property transfer. "Who are you?" Mom demanded. "James Chun, Estate Law. Your daughters retained me this evening." He smiled thinly. "Those trust conditions you were counting on? They work both ways. Attempting to manipulate property transfer through fraudulent means automatically terminates your oversight rights." The color drained from Mom's face. "You can't prove." "The party was their idea, wasn't it?" Sarah's voice shook. "You told me to cause problems. To push Lila, until she snapped. You used me. I was trying to help you both." Mom's composure shattered completely. "This house is wasting away, just like your grandmother's ridiculous ideals. I was giving you a chance at something better." "Better?" I looked at our home, at the damage that suddenly seemed so small compared to the wreckage of our family. "You never understood what better meant to her. To us." "Officer," Chin said quietly, "I believe we have everything we need." Mom's lawyer arrived moments later, huddling with her in urgent whispers. The party guests were cleared out, statements taken, evidence documented. Through it all, Sarah and I stood our ground on the porch, watching our carefully laid traps spring shut. But as Mom's car pulled away, the victory felt hollow. The house stood wounded behind us, its rooms echoing with fresh scars. And despite everything, a part of me ached at the fury and betrayal in our mother's eyes. "What happens now?" Sarah asked, her voice small. I looked at the broken porch railing, the trampled flower beds, the empty wine bottles scattered across Grandma's lawn. So much damage, inside and out. Now we rebuild. All of it. Together? The question hung between us, fragile as spun glass. I thought of Grandma Etta, of all her lessons about forgiveness being harder than revenge, but ultimately more worthwhile. Together, I said and meant it. But first, we need to fix that railing before someone falls through it. Sarah picked up a broken spindle, managing a weak smile. Grandma would have hated seeing it like this. Then let's make it right. Because sometimes the lowest points show us exactly how to climb back up. A week after the party, Mom appeared on the doorstep, looking smaller somehow. The designer suit hung loose on her frame, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. Sarah opened the door before I could stop her. "You have some nerves showing up here," Sarah said, but her voice wavered. Mom held up her hands in surrender. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I stepped forward. "Say what you came to say." She pulled an envelope from her bag, medical records, not legal documents. My stomach dropped as I scanned the contents. Stage 3 pancreatic cancer. Aggressive treatment plan. Poor prognosis. Now you understand, Mom said softly, why I pushed so hard to secure your futures. By destroying our present? My hands shook as I passed the papers to Sarah. By turning us against each other? I was trying to protect you both. Her composure cracked. This house, these memories, they won't feed you or build your future. I wanted to leave you with something concrete. Like you left me? The words escaped before I could stop them. Or like you controlled Sarah? Everything I did was for you girls.
No.
Sarah's voice cut through the tension. Everything you did was about control. Even this, she waved the medical records, is just another manipulation. Mom flinched. Sarah, please. When were you diagnosed? I asked. Her hesitation told me everything. 6 months ago. Before Grandma Etta died. The pieces clicked into place. You knew she was changing the trust conditions. I was trying to fix things before. Before you lost control, Sarah finished. God, Mom. Do you even hear yourself? Mom sank onto the porch swing, Grandma's swing, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. I don't know how to do this any other way. The admission hung in the air between us. I looked at Sarah, saw my own conflict reflected in her eyes. Then I noticed something else, Mom's hands, trembling slightly as they gripped her designer bag. The same way mine shook when I felt lost. We're not asking you to do anything, I said finally. We're telling you how it's going to be. Mom's head snapped up. If you want to be part of our lives, I continued, you do it our way. No manipulation. No control. Just honesty. And if I can't, then you'll face your illness alone. The words hurt to say, but they needed saying. Your choice. Some choice, she whispered. More than you ever gave us, Sarah said, but her tone had softened slightly. Mom stood, smoothing her suit with shaking hands. And if I agree? What then? I thought of Grandma Etta, of all her lessons about forgiveness and boundaries. About building bridges without letting yourself drown. Then you can come to dinner. Sunday nights. We'll start there. Just dinner? Just dinner, Sarah confirmed. No lawyers, no trust discussions, no renovation plans. Mom looked at the house behind us, really looked at it, maybe for the first time. At the repaired porch railing, the fresh paint, the careful blend of old and new that Sarah and I had created together. I'm not very good at just dinner, she admitted. We know. I held open the door. But you can learn. If you want to. She hesitated on the threshold, looking more human than I'd ever seen her. I don't deserve this chance. Probably not, Sarah said, taking her arm. But we're giving it anyway. Because that's what family does, the real kind, not the kind you try to force us to be. Mom stepped inside, and for a moment, I saw 3 generations of women reflected in Grandma's hallway mirror. The ones here, and the one watching over us. All of us broken in our own ways, but maybe, just maybe, ready to heal. 3 months later, I found the letter while Sarah and I cleaned out the attic. It was tucked inside Grandma Etta's old recipe box, beneath her famous apple pie instructions. The envelope simply read, "For when you need it most." Sarah paused in her sorting. Is that Grandma's handwriting? I nodded, carefully breaking the seal. The paper inside smelled of cinnamon and wisdom. My dearest Lila, it began. If you're reading this, you've already faced the storm I saw coming. Your mother never understood that a home isn't built with perfect walls or modern fixtures. It's built with the courage to keep your door open, even after others have tried to break it down. Sarah set down the box she was holding. She knew Mom would try something. She knew Mom, I corrected, continuing to read. And she knew us. The letter went on, not with accusations or warnings, but with a recipe, not for pie, but for healing. Each ingredient was a lesson, forgiveness measured in cups of patience, boundaries drawn with firm but loving hands, strength folded in like egg whites, carefully but completely. There's something else, Sarah said, reaching into the box. She pulled out 3 keys on an old brass ring. To the garden shed. I realized. where Grandma kept her most precious things. We found Mom in the kitchen, awkwardly attempting to roll out pie crust for our weekly dinner. Her hands shook less these days. The treatment was working, slowly but surely. Like us. "We need to show you something," I said. The garden shed was exactly as Grandma had left it. Tools lined the walls, each with its own story. But it was the wooden chest in the corner that drew us in. Inside, we found photo albums, letters, and a deed, not to the house, but to a small piece of land by the lake. "Your grandmother's favorite place," Mom whispered, touching the deed with trembling fingers. "She used to take you there, Lila, Before you left," I finished. "She wanted us to have it. All of us." "But why?" Sarah asked, flipping through photos of younger, happier versions of ourselves. The answer lay in Grandma's letter. Because sometimes healing needs neutral ground. A place without walls or memories, where you can build something new together. Mom's hand stilled on an old photograph, her as a child, laughing on the lake shore. I forgot about this place, about who I was there. "Maybe that's why Grandma left it to us," I said. "Not as a weapon or a bargaining chip, but as a chance." Sarah picked up one of Grandma's old gardening trowels. We could plant something there, together. The word hung in the air, fragile but hopeful, like seedlings breaking through soil. "I'd like that," Mom said softly. Then, with more effort than any business deal had ever required. "If you'll let me." I looked at Sarah, saw my own cautious hope reflected back. "We start small," I said. "Maybe wildflowers." "Wildflowers," Mom repeated, as if tasting possibility. "Your grandmother always said they were the strongest plants, growing wherever they chose, not where they were told." We locked up the shed together, each keeping a key. The recipe box came back to the kitchen, where Sarah's attempts at pie now joined mine in various stages of success and failure. Mom's designer suits gradually gained flour stains and dirt smudges from our weekend visits to the lake. And the house? It stood as it always had, its rooms slowly filling with new memories alongside the old. Not perfect, not completely healed, but standing strong. Like us. Grandma would have liked that best of all.